What inspired you to create the book? How did it all come together?
It was my publisher's idea. I had already done a book about Rush, Rush at 50, that came out in 2024. And it was this totally comprehensive thing covering their entire career. And I really thought when it was done, well, that's it. I've said what I have to say about that band. Some time passes. My publisher emails me, would you like to do a book about 2112? I didn't even have to think about it. And that's the whole story. That's what happened.
It's a beautiful looking book, the whole presentation of it and how it has a slipcase vinyl presentation. Was that intentional?
This is my fourth book for Quarto. The design of that book is very much in line with the other stuff I've done for them, where it's this very kind of extravagant, sprawling package that collectors and fans and people like that will want to keep around for a really long time. This is the first one that's a square. So if that's what you mean, so I don't know if it's specifically we're trying to make this look like a vinyl album, but the similarity, I'm sure, doesn't hurt. But that wasn't specifically, this is what we are doing. It must be square, 12 inches by 12 inches.
It's interesting because I actually just thought that it was inspired by the vinyl look. So that's kind of funny how that wasn't intentional at all.
Well, I mean, it may have been on the part of the publisher because it's part of a series of books that they're doing called The Great Albums.
Gotcha.
There's one about Purple Rain that they did, also in the same format. I mean, that may well be what they intended. And again, I certainly don't mind if people want to take that away from it. That's a-okay by me. I'm from back then myself. I'm old. So anything that's 12 inches by 12 inches and square, I'm gonna be like, "Ooh, is that a record? Let me look at that."
And since this is like your next Rush book from recently finishing Rush at 50, were there any different challenges to put this book together compared to the other one for you?
I had to make sure I didn't repeat myself. That really was the primary thing I was trying to stay away from doing. What was great about it was due to the format of Rush at 50, where there was a certain finite amount of things you could say about each of the 50 events. So that's like 500 to 1,000 words on each of the 50 events, including the release of 2112. And there was so much more than 1,000 words that I wanted to say about it. And so this was my opportunity to just go crazy and say everything I wanted to say, which was wonderful. The only challenge was I just wanted to make sure I didn't repeat myself and didn't say things I had said already. It turns out this band, there's just so much depth to what they do. And they have such a rich history that if they asked me today, do you want to do another one? I'd be like, sure. And I would not be worried one bit still about repeating myself. No, that wasn't difficult.
When did you first discover Rush, and what impact did they have on your writing career?
I mean, I first heard them in the 1980s when I was a teenager watching MTV. And I saw their video for Distant Early Warning. So we're talking like 1984, probably. It did not hook me immediately. I liked it, but it didn't have that immediate, oh my God, what is this? I have to be part of this kind of a thing. It was hearing the guitar solo to Free Will that did that for me. That's when they just got me. And decades later, I have not emerged. That's for life. As far as my own writing career, I have seen parallels in the sense that at first, not a lot of people got what they were doing. There was not a lot of money, but the main thing was they pressed on with what they believed in. They were making this music that the critics just hated. They hated it. And in my books about them, I always put in the bad reviews just to indicate this is what they were up against at the time. I'm not treated that way in my career. There is nobody saying I should not be allowed to write books when there were people saying Geddy Lee should not be allowed to sing. But I mean, it's the same kind of thing though, where I'm taking from it, be true to who you are, be true to your voice, be whatever weird funky thing you happen to be. It's not even necessarily fame and fortune will follow because they may not. But I think if what you're putting out there is something sincere, I think people respond to that, and I think it does come through. So in that sense, I'm very inspired by them because they just absolutely believed in what they were doing and they went to the mat for it. And I've always found that incredibly inspiring. I have not faced any of the challenges that they faced. That's very important to clarify. But as a professional writer, it takes time. There's not a lot of money, and there are just moments when you're going to be like, "Oi, my God, is this ever going to pay off at some point?" And I know they went through the same thing. Certainly, when they were just playing clubs, they had one gig at an insane asylum early on. I'm sure as you go through stuff like that, it's like, my God, what am I even doing here? I think their example is a really good example for anybody who wants to do their own thing their way. Their story translates to everybody in that sense, including me.
For writing this book, did your relationship with the album change?
There were some songs I was not quite as thrilled with at first that I like a lot more now. And I went into the source material, the book Anthem by Ayn Rand. Neil Peart, I wouldn't say it's based on that book, but he credited her and gave that story credit for inspiring him. And getting more into that helped me understand Neil Peart's lyrical mindset at the time. So I understood that a little bit better. But I mean, honestly, this has just been one of my favorite albums since forever. The thing with them is the music is so rich and so deep that every time you listen to it, you're pulling something new out of it. At one point, for the middle part of the book, where I'm doing just analysis of the music, I had to really dig into it and really get in. You just notice things that you may not have noticed before. And all of their music is like that. Everything you can revisit the same album over and over and over again and get something new out of it every time. And that just continued with this one. It's even made me think, do they have albums I don't like that maybe if I were to write a book about them, that would change my mind? Because again, there's a lot there. I guess that means yes.
Moving forward with what's happening this year, what are your thoughts on Rush's upcoming tour?
I have a lot of crow to eat about that because when I was doing these podcasts and stuff for Rush at 50, every single person asked me, will they get back together? And to all of them, I responded, no, no, they will never get back together. Forget it. It's never happening. So they got back together. I have to acknowledge my error there. But no, I think it's great. I think they're doing it for the right reasons. I can certainly understand people who feel like, Neil's not there. That's a huge piece missing. Absolutely. 100%. Even the people I know who will not be going for that reason. I get it. I understand where they're coming from. Having said all that, these guys are musicians and this is what they love to do. And I don't see any reason to even to suggest that they don't have the right to go out there and do it. They were Rush before Neil Peart joined the band. Getty and Alex have this really tight personal relationship going back to grade school. It was very much about them. I have to say also that it strikes me that doing the reunion tour, I think, is also part of their grieving for Neil. I think it's a necessary step in that for them. This is what I think may help them get some closure on that. I should say I don't know these guys. I haven't talked to them about it. But that's my guess. When they came out and said they were doing it, there were a lot of people who were complaining and saying they can't do this without Neil. And it's like, dude, give these guys a break. They're in their 70s. This is their livelihood. This is what they love to do. And let them get out there and do it. You don't have to go. If you object to them playing, they're not hurting anybody, certainly. Their music is wonderful. It should be celebrated. I know a lot of people who did not get to see them before, and they're so happy to have this opportunity. And I know people who have seen them like 100 times, and they're happy to have this opportunity. So just like generally, I don't see anything wrong with it. I know a lot of people do. I'm not one of them, and I recognize their right to do this.
And definitely learn that never say final tour because they somehow find a way to come back.
Yeah, I mean, and to their credit, they never said final tour last time in
Mm.
2015 when it was their final tour. They were very cognizant of bands like Kiss, or there are a lot of people who have done 5 farewell tours. And it's like, this is after a while, you start to get the feeling of, like, this is a cash grab. They're not really going away, and every time their funds get low, they'll do, like, the 3rd farewell tour. And I think the guys in Rush were really cognizant of that and really did not want to put any of that kind of pressure on fans, "This is the last time, you'll never see us again, you better come out and see all 3 nights." I think they just didn't wanna do that. And they're not calling this the farewell tour either. I mean, that door was always open. Yeah, no, I mean, my god, bands have multiple farewell tours now, and it's really cynical and, to me, disrespectful of the fans. And Rush were always, in their entire career, unfailingly respectful of the fans. For them never to come out and say, "This is it. This is the end. It's now or never." I don't think they would do that. I just generally don't think they liked limiting themselves in that way.
No, that's actually a good outlook, and that's sadly true. That I mean, it's good that this isn't a cash grab, but it's sad that others take advantage of that of the fans.
I mean, it's not everybody, but I mean, like Ozzy Osbourne had 2 tours called No More Tours. No More Tours 1 and No More Tours 2, and there were tours anyway. And in his case, I'm very forgiving of that because it's like, no, this guy just loves being up there, and this is what he wants to do, and every time he said, "This is the last time," usually it was for health reasons, but he hated it. He hated sitting home doing nothing, and so he would go back out there, and to his credit, he performed in some capacity in one way or another almost up until he died, because it was so important to him. For me, when he did it, I didn't really see it as a cash grab, but, Jane's Addiction, oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
100% cash grab right there. I saw them in 1991 on the first Lollapalooza, which was billed as their farewell tour. And they got together like 5 more times after that, and I'm just so happy they had a fist fight on stage and can never reform as a result of that. It's like, "Good, finally, go away. Sorry."
That makes me miss Ozzy so much more right now because you were spot on. Ozzy, you saw it through his social media posts when he was alive too, how much he wanted to go back on the stage just to perform in front of the fans, not just to get money. It was just to do it. Versus Jane's Addiction, perfect example of whatever happened with them.
Well, and in my esteemed opinion, and hopefully I'm not offending anyone out there, I always found Jane's Addiction to be one of the most musically worthless bands ever in history. And, Perry Farrell, it's his band. The guy cannot sing to save his life, and, to me, they were easily one of the most overrated bands of all time, and I hate them. So that's how I feel about them. Ozzy, on the other hand, I think he needed to perform, at that last show. It's so he could let go. I don't think it's an accident that 2 weeks after he did that show, he passed away. I think he could not die unless he did that show. There was some part of him that was like, "I can't die. I have to go to work on Friday." That was just where he was coming from, where, just like for a lot of other bands, it's a lot more mercenary, and again, just shows complete disrespect for the fans. It shows complete disrespect also for Love and Rockets fans. I knew people that were gonna go to the Jane's Addiction shows because Love and Rockets was on the tour, and they were like, "Finally, I get a chance to see this band, and, they haven't been together in 14 years, and this is my opportunity." And then Jane's Addiction just, like, pooped on it for everybody. So, yeah, you have 2 different approaches there, I think, to the audience, and I prefer the Ozzy approach.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to know about you. How has it writing about iconic artists shaped your own perspective on music history?
To me, it's more a question of like I had all the history already, and writing the books has actually shown me that a lot of what we've accepted as music history is actually not true. There are a lot of myths that have accumulated over the years and a lot of things that people believe to be true. But when you go back, 50 years later and, take a magnifying glass and see what happened, it's usually a lot more complicated than the story would have you believe. Because the myth with Ozzy, with Rush, with Iron Maiden, with everyone I've written books about, there are these myths. But when you examine a little closer, you see that the truth was actually much more complicated and not necessarily what people would have you believe. Yes, Ozzy Osbourne bit the head off a bat. I found out that he had to go get 50 rabies shots, and then for the rest of his tour that he was on, he had to inject himself every day with a rabies shot on the tour bus. And it's more for me, what's interesting about doing these books is there's stuff everyone already knows. And you get to kind of probe that a little more deeply and be like, did that really happen? Oh, yes, that happened. Tell me more about it. What else? I'm just always interested in what's really going on there, what's really happening behind the curtain. Yes, everyone knows that thing, but what really happened? You may notice the number 50 appears in the title of many of my books. And what's great about that is after 50 years, you really have an opportunity to go back and see what really happened. And that has been incredibly rewarding to me to be able to do that
I did notice the number 50.
over and over again. Yes.
For this book, for the Rush 2112 book, how has this project differ from your previous books?
I went a little crazier. I guess I let myself a little more off the leash. I don't know, for Rush at 50, I approached it in this much more sort of like reverential, respectful. I mean, this time it was a lot more like, don't overthink it. Don't worry about it. Just write it. It'll be fine. And that had actually happened with me with Iron Maiden at 50. That was the first book where and I did that one right after Rush at 50, which was a lot more labored and thought out. With Iron Maiden at 50, I was like, don't overthink it, write it, make sure everything you're saying is factually accurate, but say whatever you want. In terms of like opinion and style and all that sort of thing. And that was incredibly freeing. So I did that again for 2112. And I just turned in another manuscript, and that was kind of the same approach. It's been very freeing. It, I found that it's like you have to really put yourself into the book, or it's no different from all the other books about these artists that are out there already. There are God knows how many books about Rush out there already. Some of them written by the band. I'm not a necessary piece of the story at all. But if I insist on writing about them, I have to bring something to the table that will make people feel like, oh, this is a book worth buying because it's like this. And for me, it's really about what am I bringing to it in terms of original opinions, original tone, that sort of thing. And to, I have been much less afraid on this book to just say what I have to say and not worry about like anyone coming after me. A few people already came after me for Rush at 50 and I survived. So now it's like, just say what you want, please. And that also allowed me, I did a whole chapter on this 1978 interview that they had with the New Music Express with this journalist who called them Nazis because of their lyrics. And I was only able to give that a little sidebar in Rush at 50. But for this one, I gave it a whole chapter because it just irritated me so much that he would say that. And I even reached out to him and asked him, 50 years later, after you call those guys Nazis, is there anything you would like to say to clarify your opinion or maybe walk anything back or whatever? And he didn't get back to me. So in 2012, he said he still stands by everything he said. So I just went off and it was glorious. But I would not have done that with previous books. But I did with this one, and I cannot wait to do more of it.
After more than 25 years as a writer, how has your approach to music journalism evolve? I mean, it seems like you've pretty much answered it by having more freedom with writing.
And I guess at this point, it's just that it's a matter of what I feel right doing. All these Ozzy at 75, all the books I've done for a quarter, what they all had in common was at no time did it ever feel like work. I mean, I was on a deadline and I had to be disciplined about how I used my time. You have to take it seriously, obviously. But there was never any point where I was like, "Oh my God, I can't do another paragraph on that." It just never happened. And, I would wake up in the morning excited to work on it. I don't wake up in the morning excited to do anything, except maybe make coffee. There would be times I would be writing and I would forget to eat. I would forget to go to the bathroom because I was just so involved in what I was doing. And other types of work that I've been in journalism, I've done other things, and this just it feels very comfortable. It really feels like I'm at home, so to speak. And just it's the right thing. It feels like what I should be doing with my life. So, I mean, that's really where I'm at with it at this point.
Is there any projects that you're willing to reveal or artists you'd like to write about?
I mean, the list of artists I would like to write about is very long. I just finished a manuscript about the big four: Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer, Megadeth. That's coming out in November. That was an absolute bucket list thing that I got to write about that. The problem now is that some of the artists I want to write about are a little more obscure. And I just don't know if the publishing industry in 2026 is up for that so much. The industry has really changed over the last 20 years. There's just less money to spend on these sprawling, opulent titles, especially a small publisher like Quarto. They will really only want to take titles that they've done stuff. I'm not saying they only want to do safe things because they don't, but they have to be sure that there's a market out there for it to justify putting money into it and paying me and all that. There are artists like Nick Drake and Towns Van Zandt, Voivod, the wonderful band from Duluth, Minnesota, and they're just all kind of obscure. And I just don't know how much there's a market at this point for books about artists at that level.
Right.
But if they wanted to do it, I would do it today. Absolutely.
For other inspiring writers and journalists, because I always interview artists versus another journalist, what advice do you have for them who wants to write their own book about an artist? What would you have to say to them?
Just do it. And it may sit unpublished forever on your shelf, but you have to just do it. I would say that's the same for any creative anything that anyone wants to do. That you have to like throw yourself into it and, in a way sort of dance like no one's watching. Like you have to sort of write it like not really thinking about a reader or a publisher or anything like that. You have to come out with what's really true to you. It is entirely possible that it does not get published, but you have to lead with this is what I want creatively. I mean, I've done projects just for the money that didn't pan out either. There really aren't a lot of guarantees in publishing and in creative work generally. I mean, if any artist, like a visual artist, they'll make the paintings first and then have the show. And after the show, it may be that they did not sell one painting, but you keep going. You keep doing it anyway because that's who you really are. In my own career, I've found that just by keeping at it and not stopping, eventually it's starting to get somewhere a little bit. And to me, that's how I've had to pursue it. I know people who are very successful in publishing and they really get out there. Like they have a very strong social media presence. They've really worked the publicity angle of it very well. And I'm not that guy. I really am just like lead with your creativity and hopefully that will open doors for you. but the way I do things, I wouldn't say is like a cheat code for anybody. I will say though, I do get a lot of people messaging me and being like, "Hey, so how do I break into writing?" And it's like, just start today and get used to hearing no. But eventually, in 15 years, someone will say yes. I know that is not the inspiring story people want to hear, but that's the truth of it, unfortunately. So just do it. Don't ask permission. Don't see if it's safe. Don't look both ways before crossing the street. Just do it. And it will work or it won't. But if it doesn't, you will at least have enjoyed what you did. So you at least get that much out of it.
What is your ultimate favorite Rush song?
But there isn't one. I could say like my ultimate favorite 50 Rush songs, maybe. If we're gonna, for the purposes of this exercise, I will say Xanadu. But then when I say Xanadu, I'm like, but what about Witch Hunt? So it's not possible. Just all of it is wonderful. Just listen to all of it. All of it is great. Everyone just listen to all of it all the time. That's my advice. That's my favorite Rush song is all of it.
That's an answer too.
How about that?